Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful Reedville neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We're making a difference in the world by reading with our kids. We have a wonderful book to introduce you to today and an even more wonderful author. The name of the book is The Cat and the Lion, and our guest is the author Shaina Simmons. Before Shaina joins us, I'm really excited. I really am excited about this. My buddy Jeffrey McSkimming, he is the author of one of my favorite I think it is my favorite middle grade series, the Phyllis Wong Mysteries. It really is a delightful series of books about this young magician, Phyllis Wong. She is the granddaughter of a very, very famous magician from long ago, Wallace Wong, and she gets into her grandfather's crops and learns how to do some magic and has the ability to travel through. Well, I don't want to give away anything, but I do want to let you know that the Phyllis Wong Mysteries are now available as paperbacks. They had been originally published only as ebooks. Jeffrey and Nine Diamonds Press decided to make them available as paperback books. And now you can have all of the Phyllis Wong Mysteries in your home library as paperbacks. All you need to do is go to phylliswong.com to find out more. phylliswong.com. Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. Joining us on the line right now from Los Angeles in California, she is the author of a just released beautiful picture book called The Cat and the Lion. Please welcome to the show, Shaina Simmons. Shaina, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you on. This is a really cool book. I love the artwork that I've been able to preview, and it's set in New Orleans. Tell us a little bit about the story.
So the story is about a little kitten who loses its family in a storm, a big storm. And so the cat is wandering around the streets of New Orleans, the French Quarter, until it's lured by this beautiful scent of food. And it finds its way to a house, a shotgun house in New Orleans, where there's a grandmother. Her name is Mama. And she tries to get the cat to join the family, but the cat is so afraid, it's so young, that it takes the courage of a stuffed animal lion to really show this cat what it means to find courage to find a home.
Cool. Now this, is this based on the Katrina and that storm? Is that where the inspiration came for this story?
So this is the first book that's a part of a series. So it's not exactly Hurricane Katrina. We'll deal with that a little bit later in this series, but New Orleans is always having storms, especially around hurricane season. So this is something that happens a lot. We deal with it a lot. But this is based off of the story of my cat. His name was Arthur. It was a stray cat that we found, and he became a part of the family, but we would keep him outside on the porch area, and we had a little stuffed animal lion that we placed out there, and we just noticed that he became like best friends with this cat, so we ended up putting a little plastic over the cat to protect it from over the lion to protect it from the rain, and the cat would just always go under there with the lion until we finally took the cat into the house.
Wow, so cool. I love stories like that. When I was a kid, we actually adopted a dog off the street. Now people don't do that anymore, but we did. And I have great memories of Blackie. We called him Blackie. He was just this great dog. Everybody in the neighborhood was terrified of him, but he was part of our family, and he was great. One of the things you mentioned, and I'm just curious, you mentioned that you use the term shotgun house. I've heard that a lot and read it a lot in books. What is a shotgun house?
So a shotgun house is a house that just goes straight back. So when you open the door, you'll walk in, and from room to room, it's just straight all the way to the back. So you're going to walk through the living room to get to the bedroom, to get to the kitchen, to get to the backyard.
Okay, now that's a very clear visual. I'm very familiar with those kind of houses, and New Orleans it's one of the places that I have not visited yet, but my wife has spent time in New Orleans, and my son went down after Katrina and helped with the rebuilding. And both of them came back telling me how wonderful they found the city. Even my son, who was down there and the worst of times, helping folks recover and rebuild, really loved the city. But the thing they loved most was the people that they met in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, first I just want to say thank you, and thank your son for helping out, because really everybody in New Orleans appreciated all of the support that we had, because it was really a devastating time, and still to this day there's still certain parts that are trying to rebuild. As you can imagine, something so devastating, it takes a while to really rebuild. But yeah, New Orleans is my home, my parents' home, and it's this beautiful place filled with rich culture. And through this book, through this story of the cat and the lion, you're able to see the both of them go on adventures to places in the city that you and your family can then look up or maybe go to when you visit New Orleans. So you really get a taste of the culture, the music, and the influence of New Orleans.
That's really cool, and I love that. And I want to explore a little bit more about your hometown, because like I said, these people in my life that are very special to me really had a good time there. And I'm looking forward to visiting the city someday. Here, in the States, every city has its own little vibe, and, Boston is different than Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is different than LA. But they're like cities, and they're like a little different. But there's just a little different spice in them. It seems to me, my perception is that New Orleans has its own really unique culture that you don't find anywhere else in the States.
Yes. So on the back of the book, you'll find a short poem that I wrote, and it says that there's a sound in New Orleans that can't be beat. And it goes on to just describe this tune. When you're walking through the streets of New Orleans, you're always going to get this soundtrack. And it's the sound of the trumpets. It's the sound of the brass bands. It's the sound of the people on the street. And for me, I know New Orleans to be this unique place of culture, from the food, from the way that we talk, and the way that we relate and connect to each other. It's still this very special place where, like, tradition is a big part of how we live and how we celebrate. So everything from the brass bands and the second lines that you can catch every first Sundays to the Jazz Fest and the Essence Fest, you get a piece of that. And Mardi Gras, of course, which is what everybody tends to know New Orleans for, but it's so much deeper than that. And through this story, you're getting the insight of a family, and you're getting the insight of some parts of New Orleans that may not be known, or some food. So for example, when the cat first catches this beautiful scent, the cat is used to the smells of like crawfish in the French Quarter, but then the cat gets a whiff of yakamine, and this is like a traditional New Orleans dish that you're going to have to look up with your family and figure out, like, what is this? But there's all of these beautiful gems of New Orleans that are placed throughout the story.
Wow. Now you are, as it says on your website, you're a multimedia artist. You express yourself through a number of different media. Why did you at this time choose to create a picture book?
So I have always been inspired by children's books. I used to go with my mom to the library, even in high school, and I would go through the children's book section and just look at all of the beautiful illustrations and the stories. As well as my mom, when I was growing up, she would always bring back books, beautiful books and interesting stories. And then when I went to school, my undergrad, I went to Marymount Manhattan College. I took a course on children's literature, and it was taught by the executive producer of Reading Rainbow, Twyla Liggett. And I took her class, and I just fell in love, and I really thrived in that class. And I did kind of like a homemade story as my last project, which was The Cat and the Lion. And I had someone in the class throw together some illustrations, and she was just so impressed by this story. And we stayed in touch after I graduated, and every now and then she would reach out and she'd say, Shaina, I think you really should publish this story. It's just so beautiful. You must share it. And she mentored me over the years. It's been a long process, just learning as a self-publisher and publishing my first book. She really mentored me and encouraged me to publish this story. And so a lot of it was from my love, but also just from the encouragement that this was a very special story that must be told.
That's beautiful. Can you talk a little bit more about the influence of this person in your life, the mentor? Because I think there's we talk a lot on the show, obviously, about reading with our kids and parents being that kind of mentor to our kids. But I think there's also a lot of opportunities for us to mentor other people in our life, other young people, to kind of pursue their dreams. So can you talk a little bit more about that relationship and how that really gave you that special inspiration?
Yeah, as I was mentioning before, taking that class, I was super inspired. One of our assignments was weekly. We would have to find a children's book, and we would report on that. So even through that class, I was exposed to books that I was interested in, as well as other students. And like I said, I really thrived in that setting because I just had this natural interest in writing and in children's stories. And Twyla was really aware of that. She was really in tune with this gift that in some ways really stood out because I would take the assignments to the next level. And honestly, if it wouldn't have been for her encouraging me to continue with this book, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have published a children's book later on in life, but I don't know that I would have really over the years stayed dedicated through all of the trials. As a self-publisher, it can be so difficult. So it was really encouraging to have someone say, I think you have something great here, and I think you should take it to the next level. And when she was able to say that, I remember telling my mom about that, and then my mom continued to encourage me as well, because she was like, okay, here's someone who is, the executive producer of Reading Rainbow, someone who knows what it means to find really great literature for kids, encouraging you. You know, it really doesn't get that clearer than having that type of support.
Absolutely, and it's so valuable, and I'm so happy that you had that relationship to inspire you. One of the things that I love, and I think I mentioned it earlier in looking at your website, is the illustrations, the art for the cat and the lion are really, really beautiful, and they're very unique too. They're not illustrations, it's not a style of illustration that you typically see in a children's picture book.
Yes. So my illustrator, Megan, and I think especially for 2019, she went ahead and she used like color paints and different techniques to create this story, which I think is different from what you're seeing now. We're using a lot of graphics that are almost like animation for children's books. And this really takes it back to my childhood, you know, where you're having a beautiful illustration, and it's something different. And I think that that's something that parents can recognize and also share with their kids. So it isn't just all this animated style of illustration. That there's different styles, and we have to expose kids to different art forms. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things we talked about, the fact that a family can sit down and use the cat and a lion kind of as, it was a great story, but also kind of as a travel guide. What would we want to find down in New Orleans, or what kind of food do we want to experiment with? I always love asking authors, what other things can a family talk about as they're experiencing reading The Cat and the Lion together?
So one of the beautiful things about this story, Taking in a Stray Cat, is that I highlight the SPCA because they played a big part once we welcomed the cat into our household. We took the cat to the SPCA to get his shot and just to get cleaned up and make him home ready. So I think it's a beautiful story really of adoption and highlighting the SPCA and just like the great services that they do. And they always hold like a very special place in my heart for just being there, being affordable, and really being a guide for us having this new cat into our home. So you're getting the story of adoption. You're getting the story of food and culture. You're visiting places and neighborhoods in New Orleans that you've maybe never heard of, and you're experiencing the culture all in one. So it's really a family's tale of bravery, and then this little kitten story of courage as well.
That's awesome. No, I love the fact that with the Reading with Your Kids podcast, we really get to highlight books and introduce families to some great books that they can consider adding to their family library. But I also love the fact that we get to know the authors of the books, and especially authors who have all these other things going on, and you have a lot of different expressive projects going on. Can you tell us about some of the other things that aren't necessarily in the kidlit world that folks might be interested in?
Yes. So I am an artist. My trade specifically is acting. I got my master's at CalArts just 2 years ago. So I'm out here in LA pursuing my career. Thank you so much. Also, what is unique about me as an actress is that I create a lot of my own work. So I've traveled all over the world, to Edinburgh, to Cuba, with my different projects, and one of them being Bayou Blues, which is a one-woman show. And that show, it really is written, directed, and performed by me, as well as a great combination of other artists that I've had the chance of working with over time. But it tells the story of my experience growing up in New Orleans and dealing with colorism, which many people might not know, but colorism is a discrimination against certain skin tones and shades that happens a lot in communities of color, and it's a product of racism. And so through song and dance and rap and a lot of New Orleans bounce culture, I tell the story of a young black girl who is reaching out above the waves of racism and trying to find air. So I definitely express myself through that play, as well as some of my other pieces like Afrofuturo, which is a conversation between the diaspora and women and hair. And one of the beautiful things about Bayou Blues as well, I should mention, is I was interviewed by a friend of mine who was working on a film, Miranda Khan, and she was working on a animated film that was talking about mental health, and she interviewed me and my experience growing up in New Orleans, because a lot of what happened, you know, when you're young and you're going through school and you're getting bullied, I was being bullied because of the color of my skin. Sometimes that can cause depression. And so through that interview, I'm sharing my story as well. And that is doing very well right now. That film is doing very well on the film circuit. It's a short film, and that's something that you can find on my website, as well as some of the other projects that I'm working on. And you can also check out my Patreon in case you want to support this children's book as well as the other projects that I work on as an independent artist. And you can also see that I am a yoga instructor and meditation instructor. I've had the pleasure of having some really beautiful trainings around mental health and social emotional learning. So I'm just like an all-around artist. I do a lot, and I work through a lot of mediums.
Wow. So children's book, an actress, you're a playwright, you're producing, you're writing your own one-woman shows, you yoga instruction, working with folks on emotional mental health. You know, why don't you get some motivation to start doing something? I don't understand these. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is that you are a young woman and you do have this motivation, and there's, you know, you hear this term, a lot of people my age who are just cranky because they're old and they can't walk around, everything hurts when they move. They use this term slacker a lot of times, referring to young people. But and I don't think that's fair, but you have, it seems to be an exceptional amount of motivation and confidence in yourself to be able to, you know, express yourself in so many different ways. Where do you think that confidence and that motivation comes from?
Wow. I'd say first and foremost, like my faith in God and just knowing that I'm here for a purpose. And that's something that I have to share with the world, as well as everyone has a purpose. And then coming from New Orleans, coming from such a beautiful city with so much culture, but also a city that has to deal with a lot of pain, that motivated me. All of those things motivated me to reach for something greater. And especially living through something as devastating as Hurricane Katrina, that was the first time that when that happened, that my family, we relocated to Alexandria, Virginia. And it's like I had to start my life over. Mm-hmm. And I was a junior in high school. And that experience in itself had exposed me to a different way of living that I didn't know about before. And when you live through things like that, when you're influenced by such a rich culture and when you have such a strong faith, that is what inspires you to keep going. And I know, like, a lot of the older generation has a lot to say about millennials. And I will say there are some things that we're not willing to do, but we are 100% willing to stay focused and work hard for our creations and our new insight that we want to bring to the world.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned that you can find your short film and other information about you on your website, but we haven't mentioned your websites yet. So tell us, I know you have a couple, so tell us about the website for The Cat and the Lion and also the website for Shaina.
Okay. So thecatandthelion.com, thecatandthelion.com, You can go there. You can find some great reviews. You can also find a free coloring page that you can print out for your kids. And if you want to find out more about my work, I offer virtual meditation sessions. And you can check out some more great things on my personal website, which is the Shaina Lynn. That's the Shaina, LYNN.com.
TheShainaLynn.com and thecatandthelion.com. Now, I'm really excited. I think folks should absolutely check out The Cat and the Lion. When do you see the next book in the series coming out?
I think I'm going to give myself a year because it's been a long journey as I've been working on this piece for several years. So I want to give this book a shot, and I also want to take some time to reflect on everything that I've learned through this process. But hopefully, because I know a lot of great artists, we'll be able to turn this first book into a nice short film. I don't want to speak too much about it, but I'm speaking with some people now. So hopefully that is something to look forward to while we wait on the second part of the series.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it would be a really great play, too.
This is true. I don't think I've thought about that one, but I could definitely, my background as an artist, I have done some children's theater.
Well, we want to encourage Shaina to possibly produce that children's play, The Cat and the Lion, on stage. That would be awesome. We also want to encourage everybody to check out The Cat and the Lion. Go to the website, thecatandthelion.com, and also check out Shaina's personal webpage to see all the other great artistic things that she is doing, and that is theshainalynn.com. We've been talking to the author, Shaina Simmons. Shaina, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest would be Brad Berger. Brad was on the show before. He's back to tell us about his brand new book, The Big Book of Family Games. These are really great social games that give you and your family the ability to shut off the screens and come together to really look each other in the eyes and have a lot of fun and develop that bond, that love that you just absolutely love. It is a really great idea. It's a really great book, and Brad is a really great guest. The next edition of the Reading with the Kids podcast, The Big Book of Family Games. Hey, the podcasting world is really, it's changing. The landscape is changing all the time. I guess not too long ago, iTunes and Apple Podcasts were the place where most folks were getting their podcasts from. That has shifted dramatically. Now we hear that iHeartRadio and the iHeartRadio podcast app is the place where most folks are finding their podcasts. Certainly is the case that most folks are finding this podcast at the iHeartRadio app. I also just learned that Spotify is making a huge move. They've bought up a number of different podcasting companies, and they're really making a move to be really big in the podcast field. It's wonderful that there's more attention, more folks are loving podcasts. We are certainly benefiting from that. We have the listenership is like doubled in the past few months, and that's really exciting. That's why we really encourage you to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, whether it's iTunes, Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, Spotify. We're on Spotify. We're all over the place on Himalaya, the largest podcasting app in all of Asia. We can be found. I can't think of a podcasting platform that we aren't on. But we're found all over the place. Wherever you find the podcast, please subscribe. We don't want you to miss a single episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Want to thank Shaina Simmons. Check out her book, The Cat and the Lion. Want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan, for all that she does to make this show so wonderful. I want to thank my amazing and beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. And, of course, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.